Lucas Gray had never seen anything like it before. The alien queen lay in the middle of the bright examination chamber, her massive body folded in a strange pattern he could barely understand. Her scales shimmered in colors that seemed to shift with every breath, and her eyes, large, intelligent, and dark, watched him without fear, but with something that felt almost like curiosity. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, trying not to show how nervous he was. He had trained for this moment for years, but no training could have prepared him for the reality of standing next to a living creature so different from anything on Earth. "Lucas, remember what we talked about?" said Mia Collins, stepping close to him. She was the station's medical officer, steady and calm, the kind of person who never panicked. "She's injured, yes, but she's also powerful. Keep your distance, follow the procedure, and don't get distracted." Lucas nodded. "I know, Mia. I've never seen a creature like her. She's beautiful." Mia's lips pressed together, and she gave a small shake of her head. "Focus. That beauty could kill you if you're not careful." Lucas swallowed hard. He had been sent to Haven 7, a research station far beyond the human colonies, specifically because of his work with alien physiology. They needed someone who could care for the alien queen without panicking, someone who could stay calm under pressure. He had hoped it would just be a standard medical check, but when he saw the queen in person, he realized it was far from standard. The queen had been injured during an unexpected attack. Rogue human miners had come to the planet looking for rare resources and had stumbled into the alien hive. The queen's guard had been injured, and in the chaos, the queen herself had a deep wound along the side of her thorax. The injury was severe, but the aliens were resilient. Still, without care, she would die, and her hive would fall apart. Lucas stepped forward carefully, feeling the weight of the responsibility. He had to help her, but he also had to respect the boundaries. Every movement was deliberate. He set down the medical instruments he had brought and pulled on the gloves provided by the station. They were thick but flexible, designed to allow touch without transferring human bacteria. "Keep talking to her," Mia said. "Calm your own nerves, too. She can feel your tension." Lucas nodded again and crouched closer. The queen shifted slightly, a slow movement, but enough to remind him how dangerous she could be if startled. He took a deep breath and examined the wound. It was jagged and deep, more complicated than any human injury he had treated. "Her anatomy, it's nothing like Earth creatures," Lucas murmured, almost to himself. "It's complicated." Mia leaned over his shoulder. "Just follow the scanner readings. Make sure she stays stable. That's all we need right now." Lucas touched the scanner, and it projected a 3D map of her internal structure. He could see the tissue layers, the vascular network, and the part where the wound had disrupted her neural system. It was incredible, almost like staring at a living machine. "Okay," Lucas whispered. "We can do this." He started the procedure carefully, making small adjustments to avoid causing pain. He cleaned the wound with a saline solution, watching the queen's reactions closely. She made low, almost humming noises, which he interpreted as discomfort, but not aggression. Her eyes followed his movements like a predator studying its prey, but there was no hostility, only awareness. Hours passed as Lucas worked. Every step required focus, and he felt every mistake could be fatal. Mia assisted him, holding instruments, monitoring vital signs, and keeping communication open with the rest of the station. Captain Ethan Hall stayed in the observation room, occasionally giving updates over the intercom, but mostly leaving Lucas to his work. "Her heart rate is stable," Mia said, finally giving a small smile. "You're doing fine." Lucas wiped his brow again, realizing just how exhausted he was. His hands trembled slightly. But he forced himself to keep calm. He had to care for her, and for the first time he felt a strange connection with this alien life form. The Queen shifted slightly again. Her eyes focused on him, and for a moment Lucas felt as if she was examining him as much as he was examining her. His pulse quickened. He had been warned about getting too close, about letting curiosity overcome caution. But he couldn't help it. She was fascinating, intelligent, and almost human in her expressions. "Careful," Mia whispered, sensing his distraction. "Remember the boundaries." Lucas nodded, but he couldn't stop staring. He gently adjusted one of the instruments, and the Queen made a soft noise, a sound that was not quite a growl, not quite a purr. It sent a shiver down his spine. He had never heard anything like it. He worked more carefully, tracing the wound and repairing what he could. She didn't resist, but her body tensed slightly whenever he touched the sensitive areas. He could feel her strength, the potential for sudden movement, but also a strange trust. By midday, he had made some progress. The bleeding had stopped, the tissue was beginning to heal with the aid of his treatment, and her vital signs were returning to normal. He leaned back slightly, breathing a sigh of relief. "She's going to make it," Mia said softly. "We just need to give her time." Lucas looked down at her and felt a strange sense of pride mixed with fear. He had done something incredible, but he also knew how fragile the situation was. One wrong move, one misstep, could turn this moment of care into disaster. The Queen shifted again, more deliberately this time, raising her massive head slightly. Her eyes met his, and for a long moment, Lucas felt an unspoken communication pass between them. He couldn't explain it, but it felt like she recognized him, not as a human, not as an enemy, but as someone who had helped her when she was at her weakest. He remembered the warnings about alien intelligence, about their ability to detect emotions and intentions. His heart pounded. Was he reading too much into it, or did she really understand? "Lucas," Mia said softly, breaking his thoughts. "Step back a little. Let her breathe." He nodded, retreating a few steps but keeping his eyes on her. She made a soft, almost melodic sound, and Lucas couldn't help but feel a strange warmth. He had only come to care for her injury, but he was starting to feel something more. An admiration, a fascination, maybe even a bond he hadn't expected. Captain Hall's voice came over the intercom. "Report." Lucas swallowed, trying to sound professional. "She's stable. Wound is cleaned, bleeding stopped. Vital signs normalizing. She's responding to treatment." "Good work," Hall said. "Keep monitoring her, but remember, she is still dangerous. Do not get too close." Lucas nodded again. He wanted to tell Hall how extraordinary she was, how her presence filled the room like a living storm. But he stayed silent. There would be time later for that. For now, he had to focus. As the day went on, Lucas continued his careful work. He applied healing gels, monitored the Queen's reactions, and recorded data for the station's research logs. Every movement required precision, and he became more aware of the delicate balance between helping her and respecting her space. By late afternoon, a small sense of routine settled over him. The Queen lay quietly, occasionally shifting slightly, but remaining calm. Lucas began to feel a small measure of confidence. He could do this. He could care for her, keep her alive, and maintain the boundaries necessary for safety. And yet, as he watched her eyes track his every move, a small, uneasy thought crept into his mind. He had come here to help her, to tend to her injury, but already he felt a pull. Something deeper than responsibility. It was a strange mixture of curiosity, awe, and connection that he had never felt with any creature before. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the feeling. He had a job to do. He had to care for her injury, nothing more. But as he adjusted one of the medical instruments, the Queen made a soft, resonant sound that sent a chill down his spine. He froze, realizing how close he was to crossing a line he didn't even know existed. Mia noticed it immediately.
"Lucas," she whispered sharply, "remember why you're here."
He nodded, forcing himself to step back. The Queen's eyes followed him, unblinking, intelligent, and almost expectant. Lucas felt a strange mixture of fear and fascination. He had intended only to care for her injury. That was all. But even in these first hours, he sensed that this task was going to challenge everything he thought he knew about boundaries, responsibility, and the connection between species. The sun outside the station dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the chamber. Lucas stood quietly, watching the Queen breathe, aware of the immense power she held even in her weakened state. He knew that this was only the beginning. The real challenge would not just be healing her injury, it would be navigating the fragile trust he had begun to form, trust that could be broken in an instant by a single wrong move. And deep down, he felt a small thrill. He had never expected that caring for an alien queen could feel so alive. Lucas Gray could not stop thinking about the alien queen. Her presence haunted him in ways he could not explain. Even after hours of careful observation and treatment, he felt drawn to her, as if some invisible thread connected them. He tried to tell himself that it was only curiosity, only responsibility, but the truth felt different. The next morning, he returned to the examination chamber, careful to move quietly. The Queen lay in the same position as yesterday, her eyes slowly following his every step. She had not moved much during the night, which indicated her condition had stabilized, but Lucas could sense her alertness. Every tiny movement of her body, every twitch of her limbs spoke volumes. Mia was already there, checking the vitals and adjusting the medical equipment. "Good morning," she said softly. "She slept well, but don't let your guard down. She is strong even now." Lucas nodded. "I know. I keep thinking about her. I've never felt anything like this before." Mia raised her eyebrows. "You mean fascination? Be careful, Lucas. This is not like handling human patients. She can feel your emotions. Don't let her sense anything you don't want her to know." Lucas swallowed. He knew she was right. But it was hard to keep his feelings in check. The Queen was intelligent, more than he had imagined. Even in her injured state, she seemed to understand him in ways that were beyond words. He approached her carefully, laying out the instruments he would need for the day. His hands moved deliberately, touching only what was necessary. The Queen's eyes tracked his movements, and he felt a thrill of both fear and admiration. She was enormous, far larger than any human could hope to overpower physically, yet he felt no threat from her, only curiosity, intelligence, and something that felt like recognition. "Her vitals are good," Mia said, checking the monitor. "Her heart rate is stable, her wound is healing slowly but steadily." Lucas nodded, his eyes never leaving the Queen. "I can feel it too. She's responding to the treatment. She knows we are trying to help." Mia gave a small smile. "Good. Just don't let that connection fool you. She is still alien, and she is still a queen. One wrong move, and it could end badly." Lucas knelt closer, examining the wound more carefully. The tissue had begun to knit together, but it was delicate. Any sudden motion could undo all their progress. He brushed away some of the healing gel to get a better view, and the Queen made a soft sound. It was low, almost musical, and Lucas felt it vibrate through the floor. "She's communicating," he whispered, almost to himself. Mia frowned. "Don't read too much into it. She might just be reacting to the touch." Lucas shook his head slightly. "No, I think she's trying to tell me something. I don't know what, but I feel it." He took a deep breath and gently pressed a device against her wound to scan the internal damage. The machine hummed softly, projecting a 3D image in the air. He traced the neural pathways and blood flow, making mental notes. Every detail mattered. Hours passed as Lucas worked with extreme care. He adjusted the position of the queen slightly to reduce pressure on her wound, applied medicinal gels, and monitored her reactions. She did not resist, but her body was alive with tension. He felt her intelligence in every slight movement, every twitch of her limbs. By midday, Lucas began to relax slightly. He felt a growing sense of accomplishment. She was responding positively. He could see the wound improving, and her vital signs remained stable. He even felt a small smile tug at his lips. "You're too relaxed," Mia said, noticing the change in his demeanor. "Don't forget why you're here. You are not her friend. You are her doctor, and nothing more." Lucas nodded, but his mind wandered. He wanted to touch her more, to study her more closely. His hands itched to reach out, to understand her fully, but he forced himself to stay within the boundaries. He reminded himself that this was for her benefit, not for his curiosity. Despite his caution, he could not ignore the subtle changes in the queen's behavior. She seemed calmer around him than before. Her eyes followed his movements with less tension, her body relaxed slightly when he approached. It was as if she trusted him, or at least recognized that he meant no harm. Lucas felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. He had never encountered a situation like this. He had treated countless human patients, studied alien specimens in labs, but nothing compared to this living, intelligent creature. He realized that every small action he took carried weight. One mistake could provoke aggression, but one careful move could strengthen trust. He adjusted a small piece of equipment near her wound, and she let out a soft sound again. Lucas paused, studying her reaction. He could not explain it, but it felt almost like she was encouraging him, guiding him to do the right thing. "Lucas, step back," Mia said firmly. "Don't get too close. Let her breathe." He nodded reluctantly, moving a few steps away. The queen's eyes stayed on him, and he felt the weight of her gaze. It was strange, almost unnerving, but not threatening. He realized that she was watching him, judging him, and perhaps understanding him. The day continued in this tense rhythm. Lucas moved carefully, applied treatments, and monitored her responses. He began to notice small details he had missed before. The way her breathing changed when he adjusted certain instruments, the subtle shift of her limbs when he applied pressure to the wound, the way her eyes seemed to track not just his movements, but his intentions. By late afternoon, Lucas's hands were tired and his mind was exhausted. Yet he felt a strange exhilaration. Caring for her had become more than a task. It was a challenge, a puzzle, and a connection he could not ignore. "Lucas," Mia said softly, breaking his thoughts. "I know it's tempting, but don't let yourself get too involved. She is not human. She will never be human. Keep your focus on her injury and nothing else." He nodded again, but he could feel the tension in his chest. He wanted to do more, to understand her more deeply, but he knew he had to restrain himself. The line between care and overstep was thin, and he could feel it in every nerve. As the sun outside the station dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the chamber, Lucas continued his work. He cleaned the wound carefully, applied healing gel, and monitored her vitals. The queen lay quietly, occasionally making low humming sounds. He listened, feeling the vibrations through the floor and into his body. There was a moment of silence, and then the queen moved slightly, raising her head to look at him directly. Her eyes were dark and intelligent, filled with a depth that Lucas had never seen before. He felt as if she was studying him as much as he was studying her. He froze, unsure of what to do. Every instinct told him to stay calm, to keep his distance, to follow the procedure exactly. Yet part of him wanted to reach out, to understand her fully, to connect in a way that went beyond words. Mia noticed his hesitation. "Lucas, step back," she said again, her voice firm. "Don't risk it." He obeyed, moving a few steps away, but he could not take his eyes off her. The Queen's gaze seemed to follow him, and he felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was almost like she understood him, recognized his intentions, and accepted them. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought. He had come here to care for her injury, nothing more. That was his responsibility, his duty. Yet, as he watched her breathe, as he saw the subtle movements of her body, he realized that this was only the beginning. The Queen shifted again, more deliberately this time, moving one of her limbs closer to him. It was not aggressive, but it was intimate in a way that made Lucas's heart race. He reminded himself that he must remain professional, that curiosity must not cross into overreach. But the feeling persisted. He wanted to understand her fully, to touch her more carefully, to communicate in a way beyond words. He could sense that she was intelligent enough to perceive his thoughts, and that knowledge both excited and terrified him. By the end of the day, Lucas was exhausted but satisfied. The Queen's condition had improved, and her wound was healing steadily. He had managed to care for her without causing distress, maintaining the delicate balance between action and restraint. Yet, in the quiet moments when the chamber was still, he could not ignore the connection he felt. He had meant only to care for her injury, nothing more, but already he sensed that his role would become more complicated. The line between care and something deeper was thinner than he had imagined, and the Queen's intelligence and awareness made every interaction a test. Lucas left the chamber for the night, his mind racing. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, and perhaps new temptations to cross boundaries he had not yet crossed. He had come to heal an alien queen, but he realized that the process would also test him, challenge him, and perhaps change him in ways he could not yet understand. And deep down, he felt a mixture of excitement and fear. He had intended only to care for her injury, but he could already feel that his hand, and his heart, might go too far. The next morning, Lucas Gray woke before dawn, his mind restless. He could not stop thinking about the alien queen. Her eyes, her movements, the soft hums she had made the day before, all of it haunted him. He knew Mia was right. He had to maintain boundaries. But he also felt a pull he could not ignore, a strange need to understand her fully. By the time he reached the examination chamber, the Queen was already awake. Her massive body lay across the floor, but her head was raised slightly. Her eyes found his immediately, and for a moment, Lucas froze. The recognition in her gaze was unmistakable. It was not fear, not hostility, but a strange kind of awareness that unsettled him. Mia was already at the monitors. "Vitals are good," she said quietly. "She slept well. That's a positive sign." Lucas nodded but barely heard her. He approached the Queen cautiously, laying out the instruments he would need. Every movement was deliberate. He could feel the tension in the air, a quiet watchfulness from the creature. She seemed to know that he was thinking about more than just her injury. He knelt beside her, examining the wound. The healing had progressed, but some tissue had hardened in a way that made the process delicate. He brushed aside the gel carefully, trying to get a clearer view. The Queen let out a low hum, a sound that seemed almost musical. Lucas felt it vibrate through the floor and into his chest. He had never felt anything like it. "Lucas, focus." Mia's voice broke through his thoughts. "Remember your boundaries. You're here to treat her injury, not whatever else you are feeling." He nodded quickly. "I know. I'm being careful." But as he worked, he realized it was harder than he thought. The Queen responded to his touch in subtle ways. A slight pressure here, a small shift there, and she would hum softly or move a limb closer. It was as if she was guiding him, telling him where to work, what to avoid. The connection was electric, and Lucas found himself leaning closer than he had intended. He paused, his hands hovering above her scales. The room was silent except for the hum of the machines and the soft sound of her breathing. Lucas knew he should step back, but he could not bring himself to move. He wanted to understand her, to feel what she was feeling, to see if she truly recognized his care. As he touched a particularly sensitive area near the wound, the Queen's reaction was immediate. Her body tensed, then relaxed slightly, and a sound escaped her throat. Lucas froze. He knew this was dangerous, that one wrong move could provoke a violent response. But something in her reaction told him that she did not feel threatened. She felt something else. "Lucas, step back." Mia's voice was sharp now. "Do not risk it." He obeyed, but his hands trembled. The Queen's gaze followed him, unblinking, intelligent, and focused. He could feel her watching, judging, almost understanding. The line between care and something deeper had become thinner than ever. He glanced at the monitors. Her vital signs were stable. She was not angry, not in pain, but her response had been unusual, almost intimate in a way he could not explain. Lucas's mind raced. He had meant only to care for her injury, but his curiosity, and something more, had taken over. Hours passed in this tense rhythm. Lucas adjusted the equipment, cleaned the wound, and applied healing gels. Each time he touched her, he felt a spark of connection. The Queen's eyes followed his movements, and her body responded in subtle ways. She was aware of him in a way that made his heart race. Mia watched him closely, her expression worried. "Lucas, this is dangerous. You're crossing a line without even realizing it." He nodded quickly, but he could not stop. The pull was too strong. He wanted to understand her fully, to connect with her in a way beyond words. He realized with a start that he was no longer just a doctor. He was something more, something that could change the nature of their interaction entirely. The Queen shifted again, bringing a limb closer to him. It was not aggressive, but it was deliberate. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. He could feel her power, her intelligence, her awareness, and he knew that any wrong move could be fatal. Yet, he felt drawn in, unable to resist. He adjusted the instrument near the wound, and the Queen made a soft, melodic sound. Lucas felt it resonate through his body. He knew she was aware of his presence, aware of his intentions. He had come to heal her injury, but he could feel that his actions were doing more than that. Mia stepped closer, her voice tense. "Lucas, I'm warning you. Do not overstep. One wrong move." Before she could finish, the Queen moved. It was sudden but controlled. Her massive body shifted slightly and her eyes locked onto Lucas. He froze, unsure of what to do. She did not attack. She did not hiss or growl. She simply stared, and in that stare, Lucas felt something he could not explain. His hands moved of their own accord, adjusting a piece of equipment near her wound. The Queen's reaction was immediate. A low hum escaped her throat, and her body relaxed slightly. Lucas's pulse quickened. He had done something, crossed some boundary, and yet she had not reacted with anger or aggression. He glanced at Mia, who looked pale and worried. "Lucas, step back now," she said urgently. He obeyed, but the Queen's eyes stayed on him, following his every move. Lucas could feel the intensity of her awareness, the intelligence in her gaze, and a strange thrill ran through him. He realized that he had crossed a line he could not uncross, and yet he felt no regret, only a growing fascination. Hours passed, and the Queen's response to his care became more pronounced. She moved closer when he approached, hummed softly when he adjusted equipment, and seemed to guide his actions in subtle ways. Lucas felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. He knew he should stop, that he should maintain boundaries, but he could not resist the pull. By late afternoon, Lucas was exhausted, but exhilarated. He had managed to care for the Queen without provoking aggression, and yet he had crossed a line. The connection between them had grown stronger, more intense, and more dangerous. Mia watched him quietly, her expression a mixture of concern and frustration. "Lucas, you need to be careful. You are getting too close. One wrong move, one thoughtless action, could destroy everything." He nodded, but he could not stop thinking about her eyes, her responses, the way she seemed to understand him in ways no human ever had. He had come only to care for her injury, and yet he felt that he had gone too far. His hand, his mind, even his heart had crossed boundaries he had not intended to cross. The Queen shifted again, her body moving slightly toward him. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. He knew he should step back, but he felt rooted to the spot. Her eyes held him, and in them he saw something he could not explain, a mixture of trust, recognition, and awareness that left him trembling. He adjusted the healing gel once more, brushing it over the wound. The Queen let out a soft hum, a sound that made Lucas's chest tighten. He had intended only to care for her injury, but he could feel that something else had begun. A connection had formed, one that was fragile, dangerous, and intoxicating. Mia stepped closer again, her voice firm. "Lucas, that's enough. Step back." He obeyed reluctantly, moving a few steps away. But the Queen's gaze stayed on him, unblinking, intelligent, and aware. Lucas could feel the pull between them, a connection that went beyond words, beyond intention, beyond understanding. The sun outside the station dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the chamber. Lucas stood quietly, watching the Queen breathe. Her massive body lay still, but he could sense her awareness, her intelligence, her attention. He realized that his role was no longer just a doctor. He was part of something more, something that could change everything if he was not careful. By the time he left the chamber for the night, Lucas was exhausted. His mind raced with thoughts he could barely control. He had meant only to care for her injury, and yet his hand and his mind had gone too far. The line between professional duty and personal fascination had blurred, and he did not know if he could ever return to the safety of boundaries. He lay in his quarters, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the Queen. He had never encountered a creature like her, one that could understand him, respond to him, and guide him without words. He had crossed a line, yes, but he felt no regret. Instead, he felt a growing anticipation, a desire to see how far this connection could go without endangering either of them. And deep down, he knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Queen had reacted to him in ways no one had anticipated. Her trust, her recognition, and her intelligence were far beyond anything he had encountered. He had come only to care for her injury. But now he was part of something much larger, something that would test his skills, his morality, and perhaps even his heart. Lucas closed his eyes, trying to rest, but sleep did not come easily. The Queen's presence lingered in his mind, a constant reminder of the line he had crossed. He had meant only to care for her injury, but now he knew that his hand and his mind had gone too far, and that the consequences were only beginning to unfold. The day started quietly at Haven 7. Lucas Gray walked toward the examination chamber, his mind heavy with thoughts from yesterday. The Queen's reactions had been unexpected, and he could still feel the echo of her awareness in his chest. He had meant only to care for her injury, but his actions had gone further than he intended. Now he wondered if the hive itself had noticed. When he entered the chamber, the Queen was awake. She had shifted her position, resting in a way that made her look smaller, but her eyes were sharp and alert. The subtle movements of her limbs hinted that she had not forgotten what happened. Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. Even though she had not acted aggressively, he knew she was aware of him in ways humans could not fully understand. Mia Collins was at the monitor checking her vitals. "Her wound is stable," she said, her voice calm but tense. "But be careful. I think she's watching you in a new way today. Something has changed." Lucas nodded silently. He knelt beside her, adjusting the instruments. The Queen's eyes followed his every move, her gaze intense, almost studying him. It was unsettling and fascinating at the same time. He could feel the intelligence radiating from her, and he realized that this connection was more complex than he had ever imagined. Hours passed as he worked. The wound had healed enough that he could now apply a new type of healing gel, one designed to accelerate tissue repair. He applied it carefully, noticing the Queen's subtle reactions. Each movement of his hand was mirrored in the Queen's body, a delicate dance of observation and response. Mia watched him closely. "Lucas, remember what I told you," she said. "Don't let your fascination cross into carelessness. She's aware of everything you do." "I know," Lucas whispered. "I'm careful." But even as he said it, he realized that his actions were already having effects he did not fully control. The Queen's responses were more pronounced today. She hummed softly when he adjusted equipment, and her massive limbs shifted slightly to accommodate his movements. It was as if she trusted him, but in ways he did not understand. By midday, something unexpected happened. A section of the hive's outer chambers opened, and a group of smaller alien beings approached. They were not aggressive, but their movements were deliberate, cautious, and careful. Lucas watched as they stopped a few meters away, their attention fully on him. Mia stiffened. "They're observing," she said. "The hive is testing you. They know what you did yesterday." Lucas's heart pounded. He had not expected this. The hive had sensed his actions, his overstep, and now they were watching him. He could feel the weight of their awareness, the intensity of their observation. It was both thrilling and terrifying. The Queen shifted her massive head slightly, almost as if introducing him to the hive. Lucas swallowed hard. He had meant only to care for her injury, but now he realized that he was part of a larger interaction, one that could not be measured in simple medical terms. He continued his work, keeping his movements deliberate and careful. The hive watched silently, their presence heavy in the room. Lucas felt as if every action, every touch, was being judged. He could not make a single mistake. Hours passed. The Queen responded to his care with subtle hums, while the hive remained still, observing every gesture. Lucas felt a mixture of fear and fascination. He had never encountered a species so aware, so intelligent, and so capable of reading intentions. By late afternoon, Lucas had applied the healing gel and monitored the Queen's vitals. Her wound was closing faster than expected, and her overall condition was stable. Yet he could feel the tension in the air. The hive was still watching, still testing him. He realized that his relationship with the Queen had consequences far beyond the medical. Mia spoke quietly. "Lucas, this is not just about healing her. The hive is aware of your actions. They are judging you. Every move you make from now on will affect how they see humans." Lucas nodded. He had known this intellectually, but now he felt it in a way that was almost physical. The hive's attention pressed on him, demanding focus, demanding respect, demanding understanding. The Queen shifted closer to him, her massive eyes meeting his. He felt her awareness as if it were a tangible force. He could sense the hive responding to her cues, the smaller aliens watching her reactions and, through her, watching him. It was a network of perception he had never imagined possible. "I meant only to help," Lucas whispered almost to himself. I didn't know it would matter this much." Mia put a hand on his shoulder. "Everything matters here. They can sense intent and they can remember actions. You've crossed a line, yes, but you've also proven your care. Now you have to prove your trustworthiness." Lucas swallowed hard. He had never felt such weight on his shoulders. The Queen had survived thanks to his care. But now he realized that the Hive's perception of humans could be shaped entirely by his actions. One wrong move could destroy everything. He continued his work, moving deliberately, adjusting the instruments, applying treatments, and monitoring the Queen's reactions. Every small action was a test, and he felt the Hive's intelligence pressing in from all sides. By evening, the Queen had fully stabilized. Her wound was closing well, her vitals were strong, and she seemed calm. Yet the Hive had not left. The smaller aliens remained nearby, silent and observant, their eyes following every movement of the humans. Lucas felt a strange sense of pride. He had navigated the delicate balance between care and overstep, between fascination and professionalism. Yet he also felt fear. The Hive had seen too much, and their judgment could not be predicted. The Queen shifted her head slightly toward him, and for a moment Lucas thought she was acknowledging him. He felt a thrill of connection, a confirmation that his actions had not gone unnoticed. But in the way he had hoped, Mia spoke softly. "Lucas, they are not just observing. They are learning about you, about humans. Every interaction you have now will affect the future of this relationship. Do not forget that." He nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He had meant only to care for her injury, but now he realized that he had become part of the Hive's perception, part of a larger story that would shape the way they interacted with humans. The rest of the night passed quietly. Lucas monitored the Queen and observed the Hive's patterns. He noticed how they responded to her cues, how they moved in silence, how they watched him without interruption. He felt the weight of their intelligence pressing on him, but he also felt a strange exhilaration. He was part of something extraordinary, a connection that went beyond anything he had imagined. When he finally left the chamber, Lucas felt exhausted. His mind was alive with thoughts, memories of her eyes, her reactions, the subtle guidance she had provided. He had meant only to care for her injury, but now he realized that his actions had consequences far beyond the medical. He was a part of a complex relationship, one that required skill, empathy, and constant attention. He lay in his quarters, thinking about the Queen and the Hive. He realized that his role had changed. He was no longer just a doctor. He was a participant in a delicate dance of trust, awareness, and communication. The Hive had tested him, and he had passed, but the challenges were only beginning. Deep down, he knew that tomorrow would bring new tests, new interactions, and new choices. He had crossed a line once, and the Hive had noticed. Now he had to prove that humans could be trusted, that his intentions were true, and that the Queen's care was his only goal. As he drifted into a restless sleep, he felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. He had meant only to care for her injury, but now he was part of something much larger. The Hive was watching, the Queen was aware, and every action he took from now on would matter in ways he could not yet predict. And for the first time, he realized that his connection to the Queen was not just about healing. It was about understanding, trust, and survival for both species. The day began with an unusual tension at Haven 7. Lucas Gray had barely slept. He felt the weight of the Hive's observation pressing down on him even in his quarters. The Queen's presence was never far from his mind. He had meant only to care for her injury, but now he realized that everything he did affected her and the Hive. As he entered the examination chamber, the Queen was awake and alert. Her massive body lay across the floor, but her head was raised, her eyes sharp and watchful. Lucas felt the familiar thrill and fear. She seemed to sense his thoughts before he acted, a living intelligence that read him in ways no human could. Mia was already at the monitors. "Vitals are steady," she said quietly. "But there's a shift in the hive. Something is moving outside the inner chambers. I can't tell exactly what it is yet." Lucas's heart tightened. He knew the hive was large, with many members who defended their queen fiercely. Any disturbance could be dangerous. He nodded to Mia, adjusting the instruments carefully. The queen's eyes followed his every move, and he felt her awareness pressing against his mind. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and the intercom crackled with Captain Hall's voice. "All personnel, report to stations. We are under attack. Unknown alien faction approaching the hive. Protect the queen at all costs." Lucas froze for a moment. The queen's reaction was immediate. Her body tensed, and she let out a low, resonant hum. It was not fear. It was a warning. She was alert, aware, ready to defend herself and her hive. Lucas swallowed hard. This was more than he had prepared for. "Lucas," Mia said urgently, "we need a plan. The queen cannot fight like humans can. The hive will defend her, but they may need help. Your bond with her, could be key." Lucas nodded, his pulse racing. He had meant only to care for her injury, but now he realized that his connection to her might decide the survival of everyone in the station. He stepped closer to her, speaking softly, trying to communicate calm. "It's okay. We are here to help. We need to protect you and your hive." The queen's eyes seemed to lock onto his. She made a sound, low and melodic, almost like a command. Then, smaller members of the hive began moving. They positioned themselves strategically around the chamber, forming defensive lines, their bodies alert and ready. Lucas watched, amazed. They were organized, intelligent, and coordinated. Outside the chamber, the station shuddered as the rival alien faction attacked. Explosions rocked the corridors, and alarms blared continuously. Lucas felt a surge of fear, but also determination. He had trained for emergencies, but nothing like this. He had to use his bond with the queen to survive. He approached her carefully, keeping his hands visible and movements calm. "We need to work together," he whispered. "I can help. You protect. I will guide." The queen's eyes followed his, intelligent and assessing. Then, with a swift, fluid motion, she signaled the hive to advance. Lucas realized that she trusted him, that she recognized him as an ally. It was terrifying and exhilarating. The smaller hive members moved through the corridors, their bodies fast and precise, engaging the attackers strategically. Lucas stayed near the queen, using his understanding of her cues to direct the humans around him. "Left flank," he shouted to a team of soldiers. "Cover the entrance. Watch their approach." The alien attackers were relentless. They moved with strength and speed, but the hive's coordination, guided subtly by the queen and now by Lucas's understanding, began to turn the tide. Lucas felt a strange thrill as he saw the queen respond to him, adjusting her hive's movements in real time. Hours passed in a blur of movement, alarms, and coordinated defense. Lucas stayed close to the queen, guiding the humans and interpreting her subtle signals. She had healed enough to move with her hive, and together they became an unstoppable force. Lucas realized that his overstep, his fascination, and his bond had led to this moment. Without it, the humans might have been overrun. By evening, the attack began to subside. The rival faction retreated, wounded and disorganized. The hive regrouped, surrounding their queen and moving back to protective positions. Lucas watched, exhausted, but filled with relief. They had survived. Mia came to him, her face pale but relieved. "You did it," she said softly. "Your bond, it saved lives today." Lucas shook his head. "I didn't just act. She trusted me. The hive trusted me.
I meant only to care for her injury. I never imagined it would come to this."
Mia placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes care is more powerful than we expect. You respected her, and she recognized it. That recognition saved everyone today." The Queen shifted, raising her head toward Lucas. He stepped closer, careful not to appear threatening. She made a low, melodic sound, almost like a greeting, almost like acknowledgement. Lucas felt a shiver run through him. She had survived, her hive was safe, and she had accepted him as a part of her world. For a long moment, he simply stood there, looking at her. He had come to Haven 7 to heal an injury, nothing more. And yet, in the chaos of the attack, he had become something more, an ally, a trusted presence, someone who could communicate across species without words. The night was quiet at last. The rival faction had retreated. The station was secure and the hive was calm. Lucas finally allowed himself to breathe. He walked slowly among the hive, observing their movements, their coordination, their intelligence. Every gesture, every sound told a story of resilience and trust. Mia approached him quietly.
"The Queen is stable," she said, "and the hive has accepted you. That is extraordinary."
Lucas nodded.
"I didn't do it alone. She trusted me. I only followed her cues,
Respected her space and cared for her injury. Everything else came from that connection." The Queen shifted her head slightly, and Lucas felt a warmth spread through his chest. It was not human warmth, but it was connection, acknowledgement, something that bridged the gap between species. He realized that his overstep, his fascination, had led to this moment of trust. For the first time, Lucas felt a sense of purpose beyond his training. He had meant only to care for an injury, but now he understood something larger. Empathy, respect, and understanding could create bonds that transcended fear, species, and even the chaos of war. The next morning, Lucas continued his care. The Queen's wound was almost fully healed, and her hive had become more coordinated than ever. He observed her, learning from her movements, her cues, her presence. Every action was deliberate, and he mirrored that precision in his own care. Mia watched quietly. "You've changed the dynamic entirely," she said. "The hive trusts you now. You've bridged a gap that humans never thought possible." Lucas smiled faintly, exhausted but satisfied. "I only meant to care for her injury," he said softly. "Everything else came from respecting her, listening to her, and being aware of her intelligence." The Queen raised her massive head toward him, her eyes locking onto his. She made a low hum, a sound that felt like approval. Lucas felt a shiver of understanding. The connection he had feared, the bond that had seemed dangerous, was real. She acknowledged him. As the days passed, Lucas continued to monitor the Queen and her hive. The rival faction had retreated, and the station slowly returned to normal. But Lucas knew that nothing would ever be the same. He had crossed a line once, meant only to care for her injury, and yet it had led to a bond that saved lives, built trust, and bridged the gap between species. He reflected on everything that had happened: the initial fear, the fascination, the overstep, the hive's judgment, and the final alliance. He realized that human courage, empathy, and intelligence could matter as much as strength and weapons. Caring for another being, even one so different, could change the course of events entirely. The Queen shifted again, raising her head slightly. Lucas knelt beside her, speaking softly. "We've survived. Your hive is safe. And I will continue to care for you, carefully, respectfully, as I always should." She let out a soft, melodic sound, and Lucas felt a warmth he had never known. It was not just gratitude or recognition. It was connection, trust, and acceptance. He had come to heal an injury, nothing more, but he had become a bridge between humans and aliens, a part of something larger than himself. Lucas stood slowly, looking at the queen and her hive. He understood now that his role was not just to heal, but to respect, to understand, and to connect. The bond he had formed would last far longer than any injury. It was a lesson in empathy, courage, and the power of reaching beyond fear to trust. And as the sun rose over Haven 7, casting a soft glow on the chamber, Lucas Gray realized that he had not only healed the queen, but he had also discovered the extraordinary potential of care, respect, and connection in a universe full of unknowns. He had meant only to care for an injury, and yet his hand and his heart had done so much more.